the most rabid and murderous bigots of all history. Again, I say that if our religion doesn't make us better, it makes us bitter, and it makes us worse. And the Jews are so religious that they will not cross over the Gentile territory lest they be defiled, yet they crucify an innocent man. They crucify him and then they go home to keep the Sabbath. That's a typical example of poor religion. When people become secondary and the church has hirelings rather than shepherds, then you know the religion has gone into deterioration. Because true religion has shepherds, not hirelings. Shepherds care for the flock. These shepherds only cared for the fold, the material fold, the institution. Religious, but hell-bound. Verse 29. Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered him, "If he wasn't an evildoer, we wouldn't have handed him over." Pilate says, "Take him yourselves, judge him by your law." The Jews say to him, "It's not lawful for us to put any man to death." Verse 33. Pilate entered the praetorium and called Jesus, said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom's not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight, that I might not be handed over to the Jews. But my kingship is not from the world." Pilate said to him, "Are you a king?" Jesus answered, "You say I am a king. For this I was born. For this I've come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who's of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What's truth?" Pilate is a typical worldly administrator. He only cares for survival. That's the mark of a worldly administrator. They say, "After me the deluge," like the ancient French king. They only care for bread and butter and the incoming wage. That's all he cares for. We remember Pilate for two things. You know, it's interesting that people call their dogs now Pilate or Herod. They never call their dogs Jesus. Pilate and Herod treated Jesus as though he was a dog. But human beings now view Pilate and Herod as dogs. The things we remember Pilate for are his statement, "What is truth?" and "Behold the man." There he answers his own question. What is truth? Behold the man. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So this worldly, sceptical, compromising administrator did ask a question and make a statement that's of supreme value to us. What is truth? Everyone should ask it. You know, all the philosophers of the world have never been able to agree on any single thing. I have studied and taught philosophy, and the wonderful thing about it is, when you look at it all, there's no agreement after millenniums of philosophy on one single topic. Philosophers are like blind men on a dark night looking for a black cat in a room with no windows and the cat isn't there. That's human philosophy. What is truth? My friends, a bird can't fly out of the atmosphere, and a philosopher trying to find the truth about heaven's like a bird trying to get out of the atmosphere. But God can put his hand into the atmosphere and touch the bird. That's what he's done in Scripture. He's put his hand into the atmosphere. Jesus says, "For this cause I was born. I came into the world to bear witness to the truth." Notice it doesn't say the truth began with him. People today say, "We don't want anything to do with the Bible, it's a Jewish book." The sun rises in the east and settles in the west. No one in the west says, "We don't want anything to do with the sun, it began in the east." No one would dare say that. Truth did begin in the east. You know, God either had the option of coming down every night over the big cities and saying, "I'm God, you better do what you're told or else," or he could select the people, give them a revelation of truth, and perpetuate it through that people. He chose the second, otherwise we wouldn't be free. If you came down every night over Melbourne, we'd be so scared to death we'd obey, but we'd be hypocrites. We wouldn't want to obey. So God chose a nation, and when people reject it because it's Jewish, it's like rejecting the sun because it rises in the east. So the truth already existed. Christ didn't institute marriage, it already existed. Christ didn't bring a new law, thou shalt not kill. It already existed. It's important to understand that. The New Testament can't be understood without the Old, but the New Testament always has the casting vote, because much in the Old runs out as it hits the New. Shadows stop when they reach the tree, of which they're a shadow. Many things in the Old Testament are only shadows, and they have gone. So the expression, what is truth, is important to us. It says then, after he'd said this, he went out to the Jews and said, I find no crime in him. It's interesting, the New Testament refers 7 times to Pilate saying he's innocent. 7 times. And there are 7 people in the Gospel record that testify to his innocence. Chase them through sometime. Pilate's wife had nothing to do with that just man. Judas, I betrayed innocent blood. The centurion, this man did nothing amiss. And those that were with him. Pilate, I find no fault in him. Nor Herod. If you count up the number of people that said he was innocent, there are 7 of them. 7 groups testified to his innocence. I find no crime in him. But you have a custom I should release one man for you at the Passover. Will you have me release for you the King of the Jews? They cried out again, not this man but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. Another gospel tells us he was a murderer and a seditionist. Barabbas is a figure of Satan and of all sinners. Satan is a murderer from the beginning and began sedition in heaven. And now the world, the religious world, chooses someone like the devil rather than someone like God. But they're always doing that. Dear friends, never expect to be with the greater group if you're a Christian. The greater group always choose wrongly in spiritual things. They always choose the devil rather than God. Not this man, but Barabbas. But Barabbas was a murderer. Barabbas was a thief. Barabbas was a seditionist. The world always chooses the devil rather than Christ. True religion is always a minor thing. Sadly, the church often does the same. If it has forgotten the motto of the Reformers, the motto of always reforming, the church will go the way of the world. It's the religious leaders who prompt the mob to cry out, not this man, but Barabbas. Barabbas. Barabbas represents all of us. He could have said, when he got the news, I don't believe it. It's too good to be true. I'm staying in prison. A lot of people do that when they hear about Christ dying for them. Or he could have said, when I'm a better man, then I'll leave prison. A lot of people say, when I'm good enough, I'll become a Christian. No, friends. Go out immediately. You've got to come to Christ to become better. Barabbas has a lesson for us. Believe the good news. Don't stay in the bondage of sin. Barabbas has a lesson for us. Don't try and make yourself better. You and I are in ourselves sinners. We cannot make ourselves better. We come to God that he might make us better. You know, in some manuscripts it calls him Jesus Barabbas. Barabbas means son of the Father. Here was a Jesus son of the Father who's a murderer. And then there was Jesus son of the Father who was the real. The counterfeit and the real faces us all our days in all our ways. In all our choices, we have to choose between this man and Barabbas. We choose between Jesus and the devil. In what we think, in what we say, in what we do, in how we spend money, in how we spend time, in how we use our faculties, our talents, our gifts. It'll be this man or Barabbas. Pilate washed his hands when he should have used them. He should have used his hands to free Christ. People find it convenient to wash their hands of heavy moral issues. They're quite content to do nothing. But to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Here we see the danger of indifference, the danger of compromise, the danger of politics in religion, the danger of choosing the devil instead of choosing the Son of God. Barabbas that day probably watched that central cross. I wonder what his feelings were. No doubt it constantly came to him, this man died for me. And as I read the scriptures, I have to confess that I am a Barabbas. I had a part in murdering the Son of God. I've been a seditionist against the government of God until my conversion. I deserve the cross, but he died for me. That is the good news of the gospel. And let us receive it, let us believe it, and let us live by it. God bless you.